Good morning students, myself V.T.BIOLOGY, PGT Biology from PG Senior Secondary School. I am here with my next topic for class 10th, that is respiratory organs in man. In case of human being, a well developed respiratory system is present, and that respiratory system helps in respiration. Means in case of respiration we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, and in respiratory system lungs are the main parts which is involved in respiration, and one pair of lungs are present in our thoracic cavity. The hollow space of our chest is called thoracic cavity, and in our thoracic cavity one pair of lungs are present, and in between lungs heart is present, and heart is helpful in the pumping of blood, means in case of transportation or circulation. So the respiration through lungs is called pulmonary respiration. So in case of human being, pulmonary respiration is present because the respiration through lungs is called pulmonary respiration. Our respiratory system is formed of, because in case of respiratory system there are many parts are involved, and that all parts form respiratory system, and all the parts involved in respiration, especially in exhaling and inhaling of gases. In case of our respiratory system, first is conducting organs of respiratory tract. First number is conducting organs of respiratory tract, that is one pair of nostrils, mean the opening of our nose, that is nostrils, means one pair of nostrils are present in our body. After that the internal part of nose, that is nasal passage, means one pair of nostrils. After that this portion is nasal passage, that is the nasal cavity. After that pharynx, here pharynx, and after pharynx larynx, and after larynx trachea present in our chest. After that bronchi in our thoracic cavity, and after that bronchioles. And lungs are the main respiratory organ, and it is spongious in nature. So these are the main parts of respiratory system in human beings. This is the structure of respiratory system of human being, means structure of respiratory system of human being. So in case of respiratory system, means our respiratory system is started from one pair of nostrils. One pair of nostrils means the opening of our nose. The nostrils helps in the inhalation and exhalation of gases, means through nostrils we take oxygen inside and exhale carbon dioxide outside. When the gas like oxygen enters through nostrils, that gases enter inside the hollow cavity of our nose, and the hollow cavity is called nasal cavity. After that internal layers of nose. So inside nasal cavity mucous membrane is present, and that mucous membrane secrete a type of fluid, that is mucus, and that mucus catch the dust particles and other microorganisms which is present in air. So the mucus absorb the dust particles as well as microorganisms which is present in air. After that air enters in internal layers. After that air cross pharynx, and after pharynx larynx, and after larynx enter inside trachea. Trachea is also known as windpipe. Through trachea the air passes from larynx to the lungs. and trachea is made up of cartilage. This is very important question. The trachea is made up of, so trachea is made up of cartilage because it is hard but it is flexible, and there are cartilaginous rings are responsible for formation of trachea. Means trachea is made up of rings of cartilage. So in case of respiratory system, nostrils, after nostrils nostril passes, after nostril passes pharynx, after pharynx larynx, after larynx this part is trachea. Trachea is made up of rings of cartilage. Rings of cartilage. Mean trachea is made up of rings of cartilage. Mean there are many ring-like structures are present in trachea, and that is made up of cartilage. After that, the trachea inside thoracic cavity divides into two small tubes, and that both tubes are called bronchi, and singular is bronchus. Singular is bronchus. So bronchi is plural because trachea divides into two small tubes. In our thoracic cavity, means trachea enters into the thoracic cavity and divides into two small tubes, and that tubes are called bronchi, and that bronchi enters into left lung, right lung and left lung. So the bronchus which enters in right side called right bronchus, and the bronchus which enter into left lung called left bronchus. And after that bronchioles, after bronchi the next is bronchioles, and after bronchioles alveolar sac, after bronchioles alveolar sac. So when we take oxygen through nostrils, oxygen enter through nostrils in our nostril cavity. After nostril cavity the air cross pharynx. Pharynx is the crossing over of air as well as food, and after that the air cross larynx. In larynx one pair of vocal cord is present. Vocal cord, one pair of vocal cord is present, and due to vibration vocal cord produce voice. Vocal cord produce voice. So larynx is also called voice box because in larynx one pair of vocal cords are present, and that vocal cord due to vibration produce voice. So we produce voice through vocal cords, and after that the oxygen enters into trachea. After trachea, inside trachea mucous membrane is also present, and that mucous membrane secrete a dark fluid, that is mucus. That is mucus. Mucus absorb the dust particles as well as microorganisms which is present in air. Means it helps in the filtration of air. After that in our nasal cavity many small teeny hair like structure, means hairs are present. That hairs also responsible for filtration of air. So in case of trachea, mucous membrane secrete mucus, and that mucus is responsible for softness of inner part of trachea as well as absorb the dust particles and microorganisms. Then oxygen divides into bronchi, and some oxygen enters in the left side of lung, some amount of oxygen enters into left side of the lungs, means some amount of oxygen enters into right lung and some in left lung. The size of right lung is larger than left lung. The size of right lung is larger than left lung, because the right lung divides into 3 lobes, 1, 2 and 3, means there are 3 lobes are present in right lung, while in left lung only 2 lobes are present, that is 1 and 2. So due to presence of 3 lobes, that is 1, 2 and 3, 1 lobe, 2 lobe and 3 lobes. So due to the presence of 3 lobes, the size of right lung is larger than left lung. The lungs is spongious in nature, means there are many pores are present in lungs, and that pores are called alveoli. That pores are called alveoli. There are million numbers of alveoli are present in lungs, and that alveoli are responsible for expansion and relaxation. Expansion and contraction of lungs, mean due to the help of alveoli, the lungs can expand and contract. If the oxygen enter inside lungs, the lungs will expand, and when the carbon dioxide transfer from lungs to the nostrils, means we exhale carbon dioxide, so on that time the lungs will contract. So contraction and expansion of lungs only due to the presence of alveoli, and million number of alveoli are present in an adult person. Commonly in case of a newborn child, maybe 2 crore alveoli are present, while in case of an adult there are 14 crore alveoli are present. So in an adult maybe 14 crore alveoli are present, and in a newborn child maybe 2 crore alveoli are present in lungs. So in case of respiratory system, nostrils, means through nostrils we take oxygen and release carbon dioxide. After that the air enters into nostril passage. After nostril passage, pharynx, larynx, rings of cartilage, and in case of larynx, 1 pair of vocal cords are present, and that vocal cord due to vibration produce voice. So it's mean that in case of respiratory system, means in human being, through respiratory system we can inhale or exhale the gases. So in respiratory system, the starting point or the beginning point of respiratory system is nostrils, because our nose is separate in 2 parts through nasal septa. This portion is called nasal septa, means a wall like structure, and nasal septa divides the nose into 2 parts, that is right and left. So 1 pair of nostrils are present in our nose. After that, nasal cavity, means air enters through nostrils, enter into the hollow cavity of nose, and through nose cross the internal layers, and after that the air cross pharynx. Pharynx is, in case of pharynx, the food and air tubes cross each other, means pharynx is a crossing over of food as well as air. So in pharynx the food and air tubes cross each other. After that, the opening of air tube or trachea. The opening of means here, the opening of trachea means trachea is open from here, and the end point of trachea present in our thoracic cavity, because in thoracic cavity the trachea divides into 2 small tubes. That small tubes are called bronchi, and in singular bronchus. So the opening of air tube or trachea means here in the pharynx is called glottis. So what is glottis? Glottis is the opening of air tube or trachea in the pharynx, and it is guarded by a cartilaginous flap called epiglottis. The glottis is the opening of trachea, means the beginning point or opening of trachea here and end point in thoracic cavity. So the opening is glottis and it is guarded by a cartilaginous, means the epiglottis is made up of cartilage. It is hard but flexible. So it is guarded by a cartilaginous flap, that is epiglottis. During swallowing, epiglottis closes glottis, means this epiglottis closes glottis and keeps the food out of the respiratory tube. So what is the main function of epiglottis? So during swallowing, epiglottis closes glottis and keeps the food out of the respiratory tube. So after larynx, the air cross, after pharynx, the air cross larynx, and larynx is called voice box. Voice box because it contains one pair of vocal cord, and due to vibration, vocal cord produce voice. After that, the air enters into trachea. Trachea is made up of rings of cartilage, and it is also called windpipe. Through windpipe, air transfer from pharynx to the lungs, and after that trachea inside thoracic cavity divides into two small tubes, that is bronchi, and each bronchus attach with right and left lungs. So bronchi on entering thoracic cavity, trachea divides into two primary bronchi. The respiratory bronchus is, means the right bronchus is slightly larger than the left one, means the right side bronchus is slightly larger than the left one. And second thing, the size of right lung is larger than the left lung because in right lung 3 lobes are present. So in case of bronchus, right bronchus is slightly larger than the left one. Each primary bronchus enters the lung of its side, means right side bronchus enters into right side lung, left side bronchus enter into left side lungs, and immediately divides into secondary and tertiary bronchi. Means primary means the trachea forms primary bronchi. After primary bronchi, when both the bronchus enters into the lungs, that immediately divides into secondary and tertiary bronchi. These divide into bronchioles, means after entering inside the lungs, bronchioles, terminal bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles, and all these parts of bronchi form bronchial tree, means all the part, that primary, secondary, tertiary, after that bronchioles, terminal bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles, all the parts form the bronchial tree. So after bronchi, the air enters into alveolar sac and alveoli, because alveolar sac or alveoli is the main site to receive oxygen rich fresh air, and similar is alveolus. So the respiratory bronchioles finally end in alveolar duct. So finally end of respiratory bronchioles in alveolar duct. Each alveolar duct is connected with several thin-walled alveolar sacs with numerous alveoli or air sac. Alveoli or air sac receive the oxygen-rich fresh air. and the alveolar walls form an efficient surface for gaseous chain, means it helps in the gaseous chain, means receive oxygen and release carbon dioxide, and it is single layered, and single layered means made up of squamous epithelium. This is very important for 1 marks. The layer, the alveolar sac is made up of which type of tissue? That is squamous epithelium tissue is present, that is single layer. So alveolar sac and alveoli receive the oxygen rich fresh air and many blood capillaries in case of alveolar sac. Now the last part of respiratory system is one pair of lungs, because lungs are the main respiratory organs. So one pair of lungs are present in our thoracic cavity in the hollow space of our chest. So lungs are situated in airtight thoracic cavity. The lungs are a pair of conical, highly spongy, air-filled sacs formed of millions of alveoli. Means in our lungs million number of alveoli are present, and that alveoli are responsible for spongious character of lungs. Means due to the presence of alveoli, the lungs can expand or contract during the exchange of gases. Of the lungs occupy major parts of the thoracic cavity, means the major part of thoracic cavity is occupied by lungs, and in between lungs our heart is situated like a sandwich, means both the lungs play an important role like bread, and in between lungs heart is situated like potato. So this is a sandwich like arrangement, means both sides lungs and in between lungs our heart is present. After that, the lungs are enclosed by double layered membrane, means there are two membranes are present in our lungs, means lungs are covered by two membranes, and that membranes are called pleura. That membranes are called pleura, and both the membranes are separated by a thin space, means like this. So in between pleura means both the membrane, a hollow space is present, and that space is filled with a fluid. That fluid is called pleural fluid. So the two pleural membranes are separated by a thin space, and that space is filled with a special type of fluid. That fluid is called pleural fluid. Pleural fluid lubricates the membranes to avoid friction on the time of expansion and contraction. So the pleural fluid lubricate the membranes to avoid friction. So in case of lungs, means especially in our blood, a respiratory pigment is present. A respiratory pigment is present. That pigment is called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin. In hemoglobin, it is made up of heme pigment. Heme is a type of pigment which provide red color to the blood, because it is a iron containing pigment, and globin is a type of protein. So both pigment heme and globin form hemoglobin. Hemoglobin helps in the transportation of oxygen, because hemoglobin temporarily combine with oxygen and form oxyhemoglobin. Form oxyhemoglobin, and oxygen is temporarily attached with hemoglobin for the transportation from lungs to the body parts, because if the blood not helps in the conduction of O2 into the all parts, so the oxygen takes more times, maybe 2 years, 3 years to move from lungs to the body parts and from body parts to the lungs. So hemoglobin, we know that in case of blood helps in the conduction of many type of substances, and RBC helps in the conduction of oxygen, because in RBC hemoglobin is present. Hemoglobin temporarily combine with oxygen and form oxyhemoglobin and transport oxygen from lungs to the body parts. After that, in case of breathing, two processes are there, that is inspiration or inhalation and expiration and exhalation. So in respiration, inspiration means in inspiration or inhalation, we take oxygen from our environment to inside through nostrils, and in expiration or in exhalation, we release carbon dioxide. Means the oxygen enters into our respiratory tract through nostrils. After nostrils, transfer into nasal cavity. After that, internal layers, then larynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, then in lungs. Means after bronchi, bronchioles, alveolar sac, then in lungs, and again carbon dioxide release out from lungs to the alveolar sac, bronchioles, bronchi, trachea, larynx, pharynx, internal layers, nasal passage, and through nostrils release outside. So expiration and inspiration are exhalation and inhalation are called breathing. Breathing means breathing. In breathing, we inhale or exhale the gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide. In case of inspiration or inhalation, we take oxygen from environment, while in case of expiration or exhalation, we release carbon dioxide through nostrils in our environment. So this is the whole description, explanation about respiratory system of human being. Now thanks.